I would like to start with a question asking, is it sustainable to invest in supplemental irrigation infrastructure, considering that in the climate change projections that predict a decrease in annual rainfall amounts? So in thinking of the long-term perspective, is it actually sustainable?
Hi, Julian. Thanks for the question. I hope everybody can hear me. In the rain-fed agricultural systems, crop productivity and stability depends largely on the rainfall amounts, the annual fluctuations, and on seasonal distribution as well. So none of those characteristics are optimum in most of the times, and that is why farmers in the rain-fed system suffer low productivity and unstable income, especially in arid and semi-arid regions. Supplemental irrigation is a practice designed to overcome this problem by applying just a little amount of water to the rain-fed crops only when the rainfall fails to provide sufficient moisture for normal plant growth. Supplemental irrigation practices have a role in the adaptation to climate change, especially considering that if you look at the source of water, the source of energy, guidance on when and how much to apply, and choice of crops. If you have all these consideration in mind, definitely it is sustainable. If the practice is widespread and uses a non-renewable source of water, like I said previously, or deprives downstream users of their share of water, then probably it's not advisable to promote this practice. But if the irrigation system is off-grid, uses solar power, it's even more beneficial in terms of mitigating in addition to the adaptation benefit. Supplemental irrigation is best if applied to crops with low water demand but high profitability, such as spices, medicinal plants, legumes, crops which give grain as well as fodder. So multi-purpose crops, in those cases also it's very good to suggest supplemental irrigation. With erraticness of rainfall increasing, summers arriving earlier than before, carbon dioxide levels also rising, supplemental irrigation is a promising climate-smart agriculture practice. Water will be coming as intense rain events in the future. Temperature rises will make farmers shift their growing season. Higher CO2 levels will also benefit the crops in some cases. In such situations, supplemental irrigation is a good solution. And we have seen this through field trials and modeling in the dry areas, and I'm quite convinced about that.
Thank you, Vinay. Thank for this clear view on the sustainability in the long term of supplemental irrigation if planned properly. The next question I would like to ask you is supplemental irrigation technology affordable for smallholder farmers? And are there viable ways, including financing, to promote its adoption by smallholder farmers? And from our participant, Kemese, we have a question that is very much related to this question, so I will just include it here. It's now question number 3 on the screen. Is supplemental irrigation cost effective, and have there been any studies that looked at cost-benefit analysis for supplemental irrigation? Over to you, Vinay. Thank you.
Those are good questions. There are two components which cost. The first is the source of water, and the other is the irrigation system itself. And in many communities, the available water supply sometimes is inadequate to irrigate all of the available land. In those cases, farmers may consider the communal benefit of allowing suboptimal yields on their individual farms by practicing supplemental irrigation, so that the water saved might be used to irrigate additional lands in the community. So that's one way of going about and making it sustainable and beneficial to a larger group of people. The other option is that government invests in helping build small reservoirs, like we see in Western India. It's happening at a large scale, and government covers the cost to a large extent. Also, low or no energy requiring drip irrigation systems have been successful in adoption of supplemental irrigation for cash crops. So We've seen that either they run on like just the gravity, like the pressure head generated because of elevation, or based on the solar power, micro sprinklers or drip irrigation systems that run on solar power. So we have tried to use ourselves in projects locally available, easy to maintain micro sprinklers and drip systems to apply water, and it was also cost effective. So it's important to keep in mind what do you have available locally to go about addressing this thing. And by combining industry and farm level economic data in GIS and looking at the land use and agroclimate, soil and irrigation practices, people have tried doing cost benefit analysis to see for different crops, different amounts of deficit that you can give to those crops, which is the most profitable scenario. To what extent can you deprive the crop, or to what extent can you stress it and still make it the most profitable? So we are not trying to apply to meet the crop water demand. We're just trying to apply as little as possible and getting the biggest bang for your buck. So if you look up on Google Scholar and type for cost benefit supplemental irrigation, you'll come across several such studies, and it's been documented well.
Okay, thank you very much, Vinay. That is a good news to hear that it actually in many cases is a cost-effective solution. Let's take one more question from a participant before we move on to the general panel discussion. Robert Schulz is asking, supplemental irrigation requires intense real-time management and monitoring for rapid response, as well as control and enforcement, where a water source is shared. Are there examples where supplemental irrigation is already applied at a wider scale? Over to you, Vinay. Please unmute your microphone,
yes,
Vinay.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
Thank you.
Okay,
yes, we at ICARDA have been testing, fine-tuning, advising, training people in the Middle East and North Africa region, West Asia region, and we have been quite successful in helping see a large-scale adoption of supplemental irrigation in these areas. Here, typically, the crop is planted like in the month of November, and the rainfall also begins towards the middle of November and goes on till about February or March. And the crop is harvested, say, in the month of June or so. So there are periods like the month of April and May when there is no water, the temperatures are rising, and it really helps if you apply just a small amount of supplemental irrigation, especially in these areas where the population density is high, the water resources are scarce, temperatures are high, and it really helps if you can find a source of water. And typically we suggest water harvesting. So if you have steep slope land and you can collect this water, we have been successfully doing this in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Jordan, in Morocco. We have seen that if you can find a sustainable source of water which you can tap into, that you can store that water to meet the stress by making it on demand. You're applying when the crop is stressed. It's at a growth stage that is very critical, and just a small amount would really go a long ways. We have seen it in this region that it really helps.
Okay, Vinay, thank you very much for illustrating the potential for upscaling, especially in the Middle East, North Africa region. So with this, I would like to hand over the floor to Maria again to start the panel discussion.